Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally and today we are going old school Top Gear style because we are doing
the news.
Now normally I have a news feed that gives me all of the information that's going on in the news with Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know why I said that in such a clunky way, but that's how it's going to be. Anyway, so over the last 3 months or so, I have had that turned off because I just really couldn't be bothered. And I turned it back on and found some pretty intriguing stories, one involving someone getting stabbed, some dog poo, and some other things. So we'll jump right into that. But quickly before we do, don't forget to drop a like on the video. It really helps it get out to more people on YouTube and is very much appreciated. Also, hype the video if you're on mobile because that's a cool thing to do. Would you rather be hype or not? Thought so. Anyway, with all of that stuff out of the way, let's talk about it. So this first one comes from California, and we'll just go through it real quickly here, but it is a woman who says she has been discriminated against because of her religious belief and is suing her company for $20 million. So she thinks that are being pressured into attending a office Christmas party and then subsequently getting fired is worth $20 million. So it's a fairly interesting case. I guess we'll kind of see how it goes. If there is ever an update, I doubt there will be because it's going to go into an arbitration. But essentially, she felt a lot of pressure from her upper management and the owner of the company especially, that there was going to be this party and she should have attended. They offered her a way that, well, you can do some other work instead of going to the party. But then she received some text messages that she felt pressured into. And then subsequently, she was fired from her position. And so obviously she's not very happy about that. Obviously they're probably confused by the whole situation because she had a clause in her contract that any work disputes would go into an arbitration, and yet she's suing them for $20 million. So it's a bit of an interesting little case, but I do think it is kind of not for this woman, but just from a larger perspective, that the Jehovah's Witnesses are so keen on sticking to the rules of Watchtower that they are willing to get fired. They're willing to put themselves in this position. And yet, I don't know, a month from now, they could just change their policy and say, it's not really so bad if you wanted to go to a work-related Christmas party. Is the reason you're there to celebrate Jesus and you're participating in false worship? Or is it more just a work function? Let your conscience. Every Christian will have to decide for themselves. So that could happen just as easily, and this whole entire mess could have been avoided. That's really what's at the root of this, is that a couple of guys in New York City have so much control over the choices that people make that they find themselves in positions like this, where you can get fired and then end up suing your company for $20 million, and the whole thing is just terrible, unless, of course, you're a lawyer. So this next one is pretty interesting. It is talking about Scientology, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and Shincheonji. I probably should have looked up how to pronounce that before I hit record, but there you have it. Among alleged high-control charity groups. So this is coming from Down Under. For 5 months, survivors shared their harrowing experiences to a Victorian parliamentary inquiry shedding light on religious fringe groups and cults. Survivor accounts detailed allegations of CSA, psychological manipulation, forced isolation, brutal beatings, and fear-mongering. The inquiry received 286 public submissions, generally prepared by former members or their loved ones last year. The ABC has analyzed the inquiry submissions to understand the prevalence of registered charities within the groups mentioned in public testimony. Groups with 3 or fewer public submissions have been omitted from the data. There are 6 alleged cults or fringe groups with 4. Wow, this is like the most AI-written article ever. It's really frustrating to read. And then the article continues, psychological and fear-mongering both featured heavily among submissions. A former Jehovah's Witness described apocalyptic imagery used to instill fear and exert control. We were shown pictures of people dying at Armageddon, which as a child was terrifying, the submission said. Harassment and surveillance of former members were also common themes. Now, the groups did respond to the allegations. It says here that ABC has contacted each of the groups individually to respond to the allegations made in the inquiry. And the Jehovah's Witnesses national spokesperson, Tom Pisapavsky. Wow, I completely and utterly dismantled every proper thing about ever speaking a word ever in the history of humanity. Holy cow.
Is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
Said the witnesses did not wish to be involved in public debate. While it appears that Jehovah's Witnesses are not the intended focus of the inquiry, we respect each individual's right to share their experiences and perspective, said Mr. P. However, we have no desire to engage in public debate or dispute with former members. Now, there was another aspect of this which I did find a bit more interesting, and that is wealth accumulation. So, for an organization to meet the criteria to operate as a charity in Australia, it must have only charitable purposes that are for the public benefit. According to the Charities Act of 2012, advancing religion is a charitable purpose. And so the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses is also a basic religious charity. However, the Bible and Tract Society of Australia, which supports the activities of Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia, declared a total revenue of nearly $18 million from September 1st, 2024 to August 31st, 2025. For the year ending in 2024, the Church of Scientology reported a total revenue of $21 million. The group also had significant assets, with a total of nearly $138 million in the same year. Now, I would hazard a guess that the Jehovah's Witnesses' assets in Australia are significantly higher than that of the Church of Scientology. That would just be my off the top of the dome guess. Whenever they built their whole little city to make their Jesus movie and everything, that is no small project. All of the kingdom halls, all of the branch offices, all of the translation, whatever there is in Australia, I am pretty confident in saying that whatever that is, it's probably a lot more than $138 million as far as the value of their asset would be. And this is the basic argument that they have against them. The Church of Scientology and the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses both have multiple ABNs and ACNC registrations. Taxation expert and associate professor Dale Boccabella said there should be a line where charitable status was lost if organizations spent significant portions of their revenue on building wealth. If a charity is operating a business and making a lot of profits, or it has property investments, if you're continually just building up more assets with your profits, it sort of becomes a wealth accumulator. You start losing sight of the thing you claimed was a charitable purpose. You're actually now operating a business or accumulating property assets as an end of itself, and that's where the regulator needs to be there. So that is an encouraging sign, at least for me, that people are starting to hopefully look at this business model that the Jehovah's Witnesses have, where they operate as a charity or a religion. They don't have to pay taxes. They're always seen as favorable. There's not so much scrutiny on their practices. And yet, what they're essentially doing is just building wealth through using whatever money they have to accumulate assets. And the way the world is working, whoever owns the most assets is going to have the most power here in the next 10 years. It's going to be an eye-opening situation for most people. So I genuinely am curious to see if this will gain any traction, if it will go anywhere. I'm hopeful but not confident because religion has such a privileged place in our world. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if that sentiment is changing. But I did think that I do think that any negative attention that is being brought to the witnesses is always a good thing. Now this one is just sort of goofy. Shock as a place of worship sent threats and dog poo. Criminal damage at a place of worship has drawn together people in the Somerset town, a Jehovah's Witness spokesperson has said. The Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Mart Road, Minehead, had its letterbox damaged by paint and was sent a threatening letter and dog feces sometime between Sunday and Tuesday. Now, I just think that's a little bit funny on the back of the video I made about how many people were going on Google and complaining about having their mailboxes just flooded with or not flooded really, but just a constant stream of these kind of creepy religious letters trying to get them to join their cult. And people were like, hey, this is weird. This feels like harassment. Can you please stop doing that? So they are the masters of randomly sending out dog shit to people. And apparently someone wanted to just pay it forward. And so they decided to send some dog shit their way. Yeah. Anyway, property damage and illegal activity is not encouraged by the JW Thoughts channel and should not be made light of. This is a very serious crime, which I hope people get punished to the absolute maximum allowable whatever from the law. But it did kind of put a smile on my face. Anyway, moving right along. This one is slightly more serious. Afghan knifeman arrested at German train station after attacking Jehovah's Witnesses. A 35-year-old has been arrested after launching a knife attack on 3 Jehovah's Witnesses at Wurzburg Central Station in Bavaria this morning. He was apprehended just before 8 a.m. local time by brave bystanders in the station's entrance where the religious group had set up a stand. The suspect made repeated stabbing motions toward a 68-year-old man before physically assaulting 2 other victims, aged 51 and 55. Bystanders bravely intervened to restrain the attacker, with a plainclothes police officer among those who helped overpower the Afghan national. A spokesperson for Bavarian police said several passerby, including a plainclothes police officer, immediately intervened and were able to subdue the 35-year-old. Now, this doesn't appear to be a direct attack at Jehovah's Witnesses necessarily, but it's something that I've talked about a lot, and I guess I'll just continue to talk about it. Doing the preaching work puts an unnecessary risk, or puts Jehovah's Witnesses at an unnecessary risk. I think that the governing body is well aware that their preaching work doesn't actually accomplish that much for moving the needle on Jehovah's Witnesses joining their club. How many people from Germany? I guess we could actually look it up.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
So there you have it. They did not have a percentage increase over the previous year. Now, they don't actually tell you how many hours they spend, but there's 176,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. And if we, go in the Wayback Machine and remember those old Kingdom Ministries that they used to produce to kind of remind Jehovah's Witnesses what the baseline average for normal publishers were, that was always hovering around 9 hours per month. And that was my experience as well. That was what the normal average person did. And that didn't include pioneers and auxiliary pioneers. So you got to factor that in. So I think using 10 hours per month per Jehovah's Witness is a more than fair speculation as to how many hours this might be. And it makes the math easy because we could just add a 0 on 176,000. We get to 1.7 million. We divide that by 12 and bada bing, bada boom. We got something that looks close to 20 million hours per year. 21 million hours spent doing nothing except putting people in harm's way for no reason. There is not a benefit to the preaching work other than being busy. It's meant to reinforce Jehovah's Witnesses' religious convictions, which they could probably just do at home if their religion is true, but the Jehovah's Witness leadership doesn't want them to do that at home because if they have time to breathe and think, they might start asking the wrong questions. So I find it ridiculous. It's something that I talk about a lot, especially because they bring children into the ministry. Why put yourself in a situation like that where if you have some deranged lunatic that's going to start attacking people and goes off the rocker, do you want to be the one that is really standing out because you're in a cult standing next to a sign that's talking about the end of the world, and then some crazy guy with a knife wants to cause mayhem? You're kind of a big red target in that sort of situation. So there's just a lot of reasons why I genuinely feel like the preaching work just is such a terrible idea and it's not actually getting any results. So I guess we'll see. I'm still hopeful, and I still truly think that they're going to end the midweek meeting because its focus has historically been on helping people to become better in the ministry. And I think with all of just the numbers that they can look at and seeing how they don't count time anymore and how that really has no effect on how many people are joining their religion, or maybe it's having an effect on leaving their religion, but how many people are joining, because they know people aren't going out in the ministry now that there's not the pressure to fill out the time card and it's just tick a box. Did you do this or did you not do this? I think that as like the precursor to getting rid of that midweek meeting. So we'll see if that's around the corner. I don't really know. We can only hypothesize, but these were a couple of the news stories that I did find fairly interesting and worth yapping about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little news coverage thing. I guess we'll do this every couple of months going forward. So with all that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. And I know it's Saturday, so that must include dancing around in your underwear to hype K-pop songs. Why did I say that? I don't know. Have a good day.